Hello. My name is Gavin Pickin. I'm a software developer for Auto Solutions. I spend my days doing Vue, JavaScript, and CodeFusion. I've started a little daily challenge where I try and do a daily puzzle here using CodeWars, which is a pretty cool site. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and then I'm going to do a puzzle today. For those of you who tried to watch my one earlier today, I had some audio issues, so I'm re-recording this one. Okay, as you can see, there's plenty of language here. There's a lot of additional languages as well. The beauty of it is that you basically have these little puzzles, and if you complete the puzzle, you earn honor, and you can rank up, and you can have a leaderboard to see how you're doing against your friends and colleagues. And the cool thing, I believe, is when you're done, you get to see the solutions of how everybody else did something. So not only do you get to practice in a safe, sort of contained environment, but you also get to see how somebody else might solve that problem, and that really helps me to see outside my normal realm and my normal comfort zone. And this also gives me a chance to practice a few things where I may not normally do things a certain way. So maybe it's functional programming isn't your thing. This is somewhere you can sort of practice that, and it's just a small environment where you get to play around. So usually you do this with JavaScript, and we have our JavaScript meetup in town. Sometimes we'll sit down and we'll do like a team peer programming style where we sort of just talk about all the options and different ways to do things, and I really enjoyed it, so that's the reason I started these. So I'm going to jump into my account here, and we're going to see what we have here. So there are a few different things, a few different exercises. Now, CFML is a brand new addition, so we fought hard to get their attention over at CodeWars, and they added CFML as a beta language, which is pretty exciting for us. Sometimes CodeFusion doesn't get listed along with the cool languages, but CodeWars has a lot of great languages out there, and now CFML is one of them too. So there are a few different exercises that you can do, and we're going to be adding more and more code katas, which are the little puzzles that you have to solve. And so over time there'll be more and more. So if you're an experienced developer or a new developer with CodeFusion, this should be pretty neat. And again, there are a lot of languages out there, so I have CodeFusion and JavaScript selected as mine, but I'm going to do CodeFusion. So I'm going to skip this one here, see if I can find the one I did earlier. Well, I think it takes the ones out that I've already done. So let me do the practice and repeat one. So this will give me one. So this is the one I did earlier today, and I'm going to redo it since this is sort of a one I wanted to go through. So, okay, so this one here, it's 8 KYU, which is basically the lowest rank, but the puzzle is pretty simple. Is n divisible by x and y? So what we have to do is create a function that checks to see if a number n is divisible by two different numbers that were given as inputs. All inputs are positive and non-zero digits. So there's a couple of examples here, and basically we have to get a function that'll create that function that will pass the test for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click train, and so here are my instructions here. So again, we saw them, these are some examples. And so for those of you that are unclear, so in this case where we have n is 3, if x is 1 and y is 3, this returns true because 3 is divisible by 1 and it's also divisible by 3. 12 is divisible by 2 and also divisible by 6, so that's true. But 100 is not divisible by 5 and 3. It's divisible by 5, goes 20 times. But by 3 it goes 33 and a third. So it's not a full integer, and that's what they're trying to see, is if there's any remainders left. So this is our component here. So this is, if you're used to CodeFusion, we have a component tag. It's written in script, and here's your function. We have 3 arguments, and CodeFusion allows you to put information about the arguments, so we can see it's a required field, and it's numeric for n. We also have a required numeric field of x, and a required numeric field of y here. So if they try and pass in anything else, this will actually throw an error. But our code here, we're going to put in the return value of true or false depending on what gets passed in. Now under the hood, we're running command box and we're running test box. So test box is the testing suite, and basically we output the written test. So when the test box runner runs, It'll run all the tests in this file and output them in a way that CodeWars can understand and use. So here we have a before all. So basically before all the tests, the software under test, or SUT, it's pretty common to be referred to as that, we have a create object solution. So essentially what it's doing is this solution file here, this is a solution CFC. Whenever the tests run, it creates this file, creates a new object for it, and then that's used to run all the tests. So here we have the basic tests, and the simple test is what run first. So when you can actually write your code, you can run the sample test and see how well you've done. And if you think you've got it working really well, you can click attempt, and then it'll run a bigger suite of tests, and that one will usually cover a lot more options, a lot more random suggestions, edge cases, etc. And so that way you can see if it actually passes all the different specifications. So what we're going to do is going to run this here. So let's try it. So okay, so what do we have to do? So we want to return either true or false. So I usually like to cheat and just do something and see if I get some test to pass. Now we're running Cold Fusion, which is running Lucy under the hood. So this is command box running the Lucy, which is the default here. And so it runs Lucy 5.2, and all JVM languages require a little bit of a startup time for the JVM and then for the language itself to load. So here we had a fail because this is divisible 3 by 3 by 4. We returned true for everything, and so it got a false. So if we come back here and change this to false and run it, we'll see we probably passed a couple, probably failed a couple. So that's what we expect. Now, past solutions allows you to see your previous solutions, I believe. There's some more information up here too. So you can see this this kata is being solved 12 times by CFML people, but overall 26,000 people have solved this kata. Okay, so let's get a little tricky here. So what we need to do, write some pseudocode, and the pseudocode might work at the same time. So if in mod x, no, that there is going to give us the remainder. So if in mod x and in mod x equals 0 and in mod y equals 0, then we know that it's divisible by both. So we can return true, else return false. So that should be it. That's actually pretty slick. Let's run the sample test. So what I usually like to do is sort of do my pseudocode version, write out basically what I think I need to do to pass the test. And so that's what we've done. So now what we might want to do is clean it up a little bit. So why don't we do return this, because this is an if statement already, right? So now we can return in mod x equals 0 and in mod y equals 0. So if this is true, then it is divisible and we return true, otherwise return false. That's not a bad solution. We can go back to this solution here and we could write it as a ternary too. So we could, instead of doing if, we could just do return, and then we could return true or false depending on the if statement. And we just get rid of this. That should work too. So let's run the sample test and see. So that does work. So another option is like you said, we can take this out here and we'll just do return. We don't need the true or false, because if it's true, return true. If it's false, return false. We can just return it directly. But let's see if we can make this a little more readable here. So we could just say not mod x. So if we do in mod x, we just say not, and not mod y. So in other words, there's no remainder from here, and there's no remainder from here. Then we return it. Let's run that. We can get rid of these extra parentheses too. We shouldn't need that. We probably can get rid of this too. We'll wait till it runs. Run it one more time. Okay, so we had a pretty long if statement before. We just cleaned it up a little bit and got it down to its most basic form. So nothing too special. You may want to add a comment or two if it's more explanatory. Sometimes the nots make it kind of more confusing. So sometimes having the equals 0 might make it more clear. Whatever you think is best. Well, I'm going to click attempt here. We'll run it against all the test suites, so there might be some edge cases that we might not meet or anything. So we'll see what we can get here. And again, after we're done here, we can go look at all the other solutions. And that's probably the best thing. So let me click here, submit final. So now we can see a whole bunch of different things. So this one here is the one that the person KAZK, he's the guy that actually helped us get CFML added to CodeWars, so he's already one of the members there, and I think Stefan is as well. And so these guys are new to ColdFusion, but they still managed to figure out how to do this. So percentage sign is the JavaScript way to do it, but it also works in Lucy. I'm not sure if it works in Adobe ColdFusion or not. The mod one I'm pretty sure does. But this is divisible here. Nice and neat there. They're just returning true or false based on that. If we look down here, here's Brad Wood's one. So he's using a max. So basically the maximum of these, so he's doing n mod x, n mod y, and then he's getting the maximum of each of these, and if the maximum is 0, which means they're both 0, then he's true or false. So that's kind of neat. Maybe a couple of different list characters or whatnot. Here is the one I just did. So this is my solution. They voted Brad as clever up here, so you can see, but you can also go look down at a few more. Now here we got some doc blocks. So I think this is Dave Levin. He's one of the people that actually helped us get CodeWars up and running too. He's one of those people that reached out and emailed me about it and gave me the link to find it. But here talks about indivisible, that's the name of the function, gives a description of it, and then he also explains the type. So here these are Java docs, and ColdBox supports Java docs, and there's actually a DocBox plugin that we have that will actually go through your CFCs and generate API documents based on these docs. So that's kind of a nice way to do it. And he's using argument start, so he's actually scoping things, which is nice. So that was pretty nice as well. Here's my one from the previous attempt. So here I'm actually using a ternary here. So you can see I'm using the ternary function. MJ Web, I'm not sure who that is, but they're using the not mod. So that works, and they're using the so they're using double ampersands. You can use text as well. So that used to be in tags. We used to always use the letters. And then Ken had one here where he actually checks to make sure that they're actually valid integers. Because the function makes sure that they're numeric, but doesn't mean they're integers. So there could be a difference there. So this does actually check that, which is probably more accurate based on the the way that the question was worded. And he also checks a few different things to make sure that they're greater than 1, or checks for the remainder. So very thorough there. So that's kind of neat. You can go through. So this one here, they're actually adding them together to see if they're both equal to 0, because if the remainders are both 0, then it would be 0. So a lot of different ways to do this. So pretty cool. I'm very excited to have ColdFusion there. And now if we want to, we can go to the next kata. And you can see for ColdFusion, there's quite a few different ones there you can use. If you go over to kata here, you can select a bunch of different ones. So you can choose your languages or just a particular language. and it'll give you a bunch of them here. So looks like they've got only 8 so far for Cold Fusion, but they're adding more all the time, and the idea is that the community will help with that too. So maybe we can work on one of these tomorrow. So anyways, sorry for posting this recording so late, but after the audio issues we had earlier in the day, I wanted to re-record it. So hope everybody gets a little something out of that, and come help me celebrate CFML being on CodeWars.com and do some training, maybe add a couple of katas when you can, and we'll go from there. Thanks everybody, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.